President George Bush, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas.
Many famous Americans, including prominent conservatives, have used marijuana. None were arrested, and all have lived successful lives.
President Bill Clinton, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Is it fair to arrest 750,000 people a year for doing what presidents and a Supreme Court justice have done?
The Marijuana Policy Project Foundation.
Hello, hello again. We're back. I am Buzzy Zipwak, and this is my good buddy, Silly Way Out Willy.
Yeah, back in the studio, food for thought. You better be watching here on Thursdays at Nutmeg TV, 9:30. We got Stop Bitch and Start a Revolution. Absolutely.
That's right. And we are part of the D.O.F, that's the Department of Freedom.
Absolutely, bud.
Trying to emphasize a little bit of freedom of expression,
put it out
of
there.
Thought, expand the worldview, give you some tasty treats to dawn.
Oh, yeah.
So now, Willie, let me ask you this time. What's been on your mind lately?
Well, Buzzy Zipwak, you know, we've been wondering what we're going to do about for the whole season here, and you're looking for new ideas, and so, you know, we came up with the idea of people. Are you ready for the question of the month? Okay, because this is the question of the month. The question of the month is, do we as human beings understand the true concept of freedom? Is there a true concept of freedom? Okay, and the bigger question lies on says this, let me tell you. If we do not understand the true nature of freedom, the question is, are we therefore doomed to live with the consequences of our illusions of freedom? Of freedom, of course, people, because there are consequences to ideas. All ideas have consequences. Everything's a relationship. So let's get it on. What are we going to talk about, Buzz?
Freedom.
Freedom. Yeah. Richie Havens style, man. Let me tell you. Woo! Yeah. So, you know, how do we want to start this off? We could talk about 1.5 million things about freedom. But why don't I just whip out this little quote from a fine gentleman about freedom and illusion? And his name, you might have heard of him once or twice in your life out there, Mr. Frank Zappa. This is what he has to say. The illusion of freedom, people, here in America, it will continue as long as it's profitable to continue the illusion. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And at that point where the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain, they will just take down the scenery. They will pull back the curtains, just like the Wizard of Oz, and they will move, he didn't say that, but he said, they will move the tables and the chairs out of the way, and you will see a brick wall at the back of the theater. You know what I'm talking about, man?
So now the question is, right here on Food for Thought, do you want the red pill or do you want the blue pill? Because really, that's what it boils right down to. You know, the movie, when that movie came out, The Matrix, I mean, everybody loved it. I thought it was great sci-fi. But then, you know, when you stop, after you get over the, you know, the thrill of the storyline and stop to really think about what it presents, whoa, welcome to reality.
Buzz Zipwak, my brother of another mother. Let me ask you a couple questions. Now we're talking about freedom. Do you think we're talking about the freedom like George Bush there? You know,
at the barrel of a gun?
No, I mean, like, you know, he's propagating freedom in lands all over around the world, but here he's taking away our civil liberties and such. Is that type of liberty freedom we're talking about, Buzz?
No, that's not what we're talking about.
But isn't that a kind of liberty for somebody out there? You know, I mean, good God. I mean, how about all those men out there in Afghanistan and Iraq and are we fighting a war? Is that freedom? Are they freedom fighters? What is a freedom fighter anyway, Buzz? Oh, my God.
Oh, good question.
And what's going on, you know? This guy, man, he was a Roman statesman. And, you know, Cicero, he said, what then is freedom? He said, the power to live as one wishes. Is that freedom, Buzz?
Well, that's a pretty good definition of freedom. That's
the power to live as one wishes. That's almost like Aleister Crowley saying the whole of the law shall be do without will. Well, he did say under love, but, you know, I don't know, man.
Yeah, love of oneself.
Well, then you had Mr. George Orwell and our good friend Mr. Footnote there, Chief. He would tell you that's not even his real name, but he said war is peace and that freedom is slavery. Is that the kind of freedom?
Who said that?
Orwell in 1884, man. You know, ignorance is strength, that whole Big Brother thing.
Oh, well, yeah, you know, well, that's what they want you to believe. Once again, you know, this is like ripping off another layer of the matrix. How do you perceive yourself to be free? You know, when we researched this, you know, one of the philosophies that I came across was you can be in a prison cell confined to this size, you know, 6x8 room, and you're free within the restraints of that cell.
Practicing the presence of peace.
You know, you cannot go beyond the reality of that and think of that I'm free to run down the street or in a field, and in your case, you know, unfortunately at this time you're not free to run naked through a hemp field yet, but God willing someday you will be.
Right. So what you're saying is you can acquire inner freedom even in a prison cell. Absolutely.
Well, you can, yes, I suppose you could. That's probably the only way that you would actually probably survive a situation like that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, unless you're going to succumb to the violent side of that.
Now, maybe we can just tell the folks a little bit of what we think freedom is not, okay?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a good spot to start because, you know, enemies of freedom is what you're talking about.
Right.
So throw out that first thing, what you said to me earlier.
You got your ears cleaned out of wax. Here we go, folks. Freedom is not a legal right. Did you hear me say that? I said it is not a legal right, nor is it a privilege. No, in fact, folks, okay, legal rights are the legal barriers for the state from interfering in a person's life. However, these rights can often be suspended under circumstances such as war or, you know, terrorist attack or national catastrophe or martial law, or perhaps a privilege is something that is normally practiced only by a few persons at the expense of others. And what we're talking about there is plunder. We know there's plunder going on. Some of it's legal plunder, some of it's illegal plunder. But you know what? There's a lot of plundering going on in the land, and I call it socialism, people.
Yes.
Whoa. Freedom actually is a natural right, is what we're trying to say.
Absolutely is.
What freedom isn't, it isn't a privilege, you know. It's not a legal right, it's a natural right, you know.
Endowed by our Creator
with
unalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Well,
not the security of person, by the way. You know, one of the things that in this research, you know, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was written back in 1966 by some committee, a humanist type committee, to come up with the universal rights for people. Now, as good as it sounds in some respects, one thing that it does not, or that it does embrace, and I highlighted a few of them, and I'm going to throw out only really the last one because the whole gist of this is these rights under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights are established under the rule of law. They are given to us by law, and they are also taken away by law because Article 29, Section 3, the rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purpose and principles of the United Nations. Well, we've talked many times about the United Nations and what they stand for and what their real agenda is. They want to tax us for carbon, for being alive.
In essence, what you're saying is what freedom is not.
Right. Now, compared to our Constitution and the Bill of Rights, because when we talk about freedoms, the Bill of Rights really defines a lot of those freedoms. It recognizes them. It doesn't grant them to us because it recognizes the fact that they are created amongst us, created part of us. They're in us. They are endowed by our Creator, unalienable, not foreign to us.
While we're on the subject, I know Chief Footnote would appreciate us bringing this up because he's always spouting it off every time I hear him spouting things off. He's on this one, that's for damn sure. And it's the preamble, it's the purposes of our Constitution, as Buzzy was saying. You know, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Now, what is liberty but freedom from unjust restraint or control, freedom to do as one chooses within the bounds of just laws? You know, government's rightful purpose is to